Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. We have a ton of Superman news to break down today, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this. We already knew there was a lot riding on Superman, James Gunn's first film in the new DC universe. But as it turns out, way more is at stake than we thought. In fact, it's not just DC Studios on the line here. Warner Brothers Discovery itself could be in serious trouble if this movie doesn't perform well. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. We've got new updates from the test screenings, and thankfully they paint a different picture from the ones we heard about in December. We're also learning more about the movie's tone, surprise characters, and on top of that, DC's plans for CinemaCon next month. So yeah, it's a lot to unpack today. If you love DC, Marvel and all things movies, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Alright, let's start with something absolutely wild from a recent Puck News report. They said, and get this, if Warner Brothers can't get the DC franchise to finally work, there's genuine fear that the studio could go the way of Fox, which was swallowed up by Disney in 2019. Now before we panic, let's clear something up. That doesn't mean Disney is about to buy Warner Brothers. I've seen some people assume that, but let's be real. Disney owning Marvel, Star Wars and DC would be insane. Honestly, I don't even think regulators would allow it. That's way too much control over the superhero space. What the report is saying though, is that Warner Brothers Discovery could be sold off to a larger company if DC doesn't finally get their act together. That means Superman isn't just setting the course for Gunn's DCU, it might literally decide the fate of Warner Brothers as a whole, and that's a staggering amount of pressure. Now for the good news. We've got some fresh test screening reports, and they're way better than what we've heard in December. According to DC Despresson, a well-known Portuguese DC fan site, early viewers are loving Nicholas Hoult's performance as Lex Luthor, and this isn't the first time we've heard this, so that's reassuring. Another big win, the CGI and VFX look a lot better than what we saw in the first trailer. Now let's talk about that clip of Superman flying through the mountains, the one that had people questioning his eyes. James Gunn has said that scene wasn't CGI altered, at least not on Superman's face. So while that specific shot might not change, the overall CGI quality is improving, and that's great news. But here's where things get really interesting. Apparently, there's some surprise villains in the movie. That's right, they've managed to keep some big bads under wraps, which is honestly pretty impressive in the age of leaks. Now let's talk about the feel of the movie because this part really caught my attention. The test screening report says Superman's tone is closer to the first Wonder Woman movie and the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and that's huge. Because let's be honest, the first Wonder Woman movie, amazing, one of the best DC movies, period. The second one, not so much. So it's great to hear that Gunn is aiming for the better one. And Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a classic. Gunn wrote and directed it, so it makes sense that some of the DNA will make its way into Superman. Even John Campea, a well-known movie critic, has said that he's heard the movie is tremendously good. He's been told that it's emotional, funny, and has more sci-fi elements than we might expect. And honestly, that checks out. If you look at the first trailer, it's already a clear sci-fi vibe, especially with the battle happening outside Superman's apartment. Plus, we know characters like Guy Gardner, Hawker, and others are showing up, so a sci-fi heavy approach makes a lot of sense. Speaking of Guy Gardner, Nathan Fillion recently talked about playing him, and let's just say this guy is not your typical hero. Fillion described Guy Gardner as a jerk, which, if you know the comics, is completely on point. He said being a Green Lantern doesn't mean you have to be a good person, just fearless. And Gardner is fearless but not nice. What's even more interesting is that he apparently thinks he can take on Superman. Spoiler alert, he absolutely cannot. But the idea of seeing a cocky Green Lantern go up against the Man of Steel, that could be hilarious. Now, we also got a toy leak that suggests Ultraman will appear in the movie. Not exactly shocking, but still exciting. Another toy listing mentions Lex Luthor with a baby kaiju, which might be a younger version of the giant monster we saw in the teaser trailer. If that's the case, then Lex may have a hand in unleashing a kaiju level threat on Metropolis. Classic Lex move. Last but not least, let's talk about CinemaCon. Warner Brothers has a panel scheduled for April 1st from 4:30 PM to 6:30 PM. And according to The Hollywood Reporter, DC Studios plans to make a splash. So what does that mean? Well, expect new Superman footage for sure. But beyond that, we might get first looks at other DCU projects like Supergirl. And with Superman carrying so much weight, Warner Brothers is going to do everything possible to build hype to make sure this film is financially successful. So here's the big question. Do you think Superman will live up to the hype? Will it be great, good, or maybe not so much? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on DC, Marvel and more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.